Hello and welcome to the first ever cooking edition of the Book Club of Destiny. Something that I wanted to do with this book club and this vlog and this YouTube channel is not only talk about books, but to enjoy food with the books. Because let's face it, food is great. As you know, this week we've been reading The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale, a retelling of the Grimm brothers' fairy tale, The Goose Girl. There is actually a ton of food mentioned in this book, from delicious sounding things like almond cake to things like bean and lard soup. Yum. I decided to go a more delicious route and go with apple cake, since it was actually mentioned in the book twice. Since the Grimm brothers were German, I scoured the internet for authentic German apple cake, and there are actually a ton of recipes out there. So what's going to be even more fun about this today is I've never made this. Sweet! We are going to discover how delicious this is together, and if I fail, we're going to have a good laugh, because that's all part of the joy of baking when you do it for the first time. There's always going to be. Anyway, this will be fun. Also, I want to point out that this is not my recipe. I did find it online. It came from deliciously.com, and I will leave a link down below to the original recipe, so credit goes where it needs to go. So let's get started on this apple cake, also known as Apfelkuchen. First things first, we want to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Next, we are going to take a cup of sugar and a stick of butter. Put that all in your mixer and cream that together nice and good. Woo! In a separate bowl, we're going to mix together a cup of flour, plop, a teaspoon of baking powder, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. Mix those all together real good. Next, what we're going to do is add our eggs one at a time to the butter and sugar mixture. Egg 1. And egg 2. Ta-da! The next thing we want to do is add our dry ingredients to our wet ingredients. And what I'm just going to do is add it a little bit at a time using the cup I used earlier to help me out, because I'm one of those people who has a tendency to fly flour everywhere. So, we're just going to do a little bit at a time here to try and avoid some mess. There we go. Now, one thing the recipe does mention is that this batter is going to be very thick and sticky. It says that it's going to be the consistency almost of frosting. So that's the sort of thing we're looking for. And when we actually go to stick it in our springform pan, we want to make sure that that's well prepared and greased, because it's a very sticky batter. The next step is to peel and core our apples. So that's what we're going to do. The recipe calls for 4 to 5 apples. And the recipe actually suggests using Granny Smith apples, but I'm using Gala apples today. It looks like she peeled and cored everything by hand. I have this handy dandy tool that I am going to use. Stabbing our apple. Alright, here we go. at that beauty. This actually makes it smaller, thinner than what she did in hers. So what we'll probably have to do is do some layering there of the apple. But that looks pretty good. So now we just got to do it to the other three. I think one of the best things about doing things like this is snacking on all the little scraps. Now that my apples are mostly peeled, except for that part's getting eaten. Now that my apples have been peeled and they're all spirally, I'm going to first cut them in half so I don't have that spiral. There we go. And we're going to stick that in a bowl. And we're going to do that with all of them. With all of the apples in the bowl, we're just going to sprinkle them with some lemon juice. Doesn't specify how much, just let's do a splash. Dash of cinnamon. Whew, I like cinnamon. And we're just going to gently mix that all together. Look how pretty and cinnamon crusted our apples are. Alright, so next up, we're going to prep our pan here. The recipe says to spread shortening on there and then flour, but I don't believe in shortening, and so I don't have it. But I do have Pam, so what I'm going to do instead is spray this thing with Pam and then the flour, and hopefully that works just as well. Someone's probably going, "You're insane, you need the shortening, you're not following the directions." No, I'm not. Smell all that goodness of Pam. So we're getting a spoonful of my flour here, and we're going to spread it around, and I'm just going to use my fingers. Okay, our pan is all prepared, so now here comes the exciting part. We get to transfer our batter from our mixer into the pan. Now, so once we get it all in there, we're going to want to make sure that we spread it out evenly. And it's not going to be like a super tall cake, it's only a couple inches thick. And it will rise a little bit, so don't panic if it's like, "There's no dough." Look at me sounding like I know what I'm talking about. When at the video I admitted I had never made this before. This dough really is sticky. There is our lovely batter in our 9-inch springform pan. Now we're just going to layer the apples in there in any design we want. My apples are thinner than hers. Also, you want to press down a little bit and make sure they really get down there in the batter. So I may end up kind of doubling them. Just sprinkle a little bit extra cinnamon and sugar on top, and then it's ready to go in the oven. Last but not least, we're going to stick this little beauty into the oven for an hour. There are still 19 minutes to go, and this smells really good. Look at that beautiful cake. So good. Here is my cute little slice to try, and I cannot resist. Alright, I got my little fork and my little piece to try, and here we go. Ooh, there's a big piece of apple there. That's pretty tasty. I like that texture. I like that. I'm gonna eat this whole thing right now. That is pretty tasty. I approve. I really like that. I guess you'd say it's kind of spongy. That is quite nice. I feel like I'm just going to sit here picking at this until there's none of it left. It's got a little bit of a different texture from a normal cake. but I like it. So until next time, read a book, eat some German apple cake, and love life. Oh no, I'm being attacked! Ah! I got my little dainty spoon. Aww. Mixing my butter and sugar. Yum, 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 this cake is gonna be amazing.